The Adventures of Livia Stargaze. Starring
Ashley Tirado
as Livia Stargaze, Eric Hoover as Spencer Whills,
and Dr. Pore.
Cathrine Barbasiewicz as Quela, Hannah Olstein as Yura, Samantha V. Hutton as Benda. Episode 1, Worthless Treasure by Eddie Francisco. Theme song composed by Jessica DiMari.
So much has happened ever since I ran away that I felt the need to talk about it. I'm not much of a writer, but I can talk someone's ear off for hours, whether they like it or not. I've been a stowaway on board so many ships by now that I lost count. Now here I am, alone on a broken down ship with little power and food. Once the main power goes out, the emergency life support systems can last maybe 5-ish Earth months? Something like that. Oh darn. You know what? I just realized that I'm using up oxygen talking. Well, I'd rather die talking to myself than die in silence, staring at nothing. I sent a distress signal about 10 Earth minutes ago. Way too early for a response. I realized that I, Livia Stargaze, could die without anyone knowing my story. I guess if Space Patrol comes find me and I'm gone by then, they'll at least have these recordings, even if the officer in charge just stuffs them in some evidence locker for all eternity. At least there'll be a record out there of my life. So, Livia, what do you want to talk about first? I actually don't know, Mr. Invisible Reporter Person. We'll be right back after these messages, after Livia figures out what she feels like talking about next. Oh, I know. Spencer Whills. Okay, that didn't take very long. He was my first real boyfriend. I told myself not to dwell on him ever again, but here we are, I guess. He was such a bore! Oh my god, I can't believe I ever dated him. He was rich, and you can really tell how uninspired rich people are by the fact that all they do with their money is, well, make more money. Very few of them really do anything remotely interesting, like make a giant death ray or hold entire planets hostage. It's funny saying this now because a few years ago, I would have killed to be with a rich, handsome husband by my side. I'm having serious buyer's remorse just thinking about him now. Why? Why did I fall for him? Oh, I know. He lived in a giant mansion with over 300 rooms, and it was on a private asteroid. Not many people can say they own an asteroid. It's tempting to go back to that lifestyle, but I was so sheltered then. He had everything there, so I hardly had any reason to leave that bubble. All the food in the world, all the entertainment one could dream of, and the cutest dog too, named Fenny. There were 3 libraries, 5 swimming pools, every known instrument in the galaxy lying around, an armory, an indoor movie theater, and even his own sonic dish. But the razziest thing was that he owned some of the galaxy's rarest artifacts. That was the cherry on top for me. Rich and cultured? Zap! Let's see if I remember his collection. He had the Custodian Cosmic Egg, the Sacred Towel of Tessa, the first edition of St. Bernard's The 69 Commandments of the Eternal Phallus, and even, supposedly, the decapitated head of Jeff Bezos. Well, I think that one might be an urban legend. He never let me see it, so I never knew for sure. But anyway, Spencer had it all. And it was fascinating. The thing about rich people like Spencer is that they have all this stuff but rarely use any of it. His dog Fenny, the cutest little Martian mutt in the galaxy, rarely saw any fun before I arrived. Spencer would normally keep Fenny in a cage and also get a friend to dog sit while he was out partying. Like, why? Why even own a dog if you're not gonna... Anyway, I'm getting derailed. There was one thing he didn't have. An artifact from Earth's history. Okay, here's the thing about humans who emigrated to space. They don't really care much about what happened to Earth. Don't talk about it, don't care about it, and yeah, who can blame them? Earth was a pretty garbage planet whose people did terrible things to each other. But I always wondered what happened there. I grew up on Melosa, and like most planets colonized by humans, we didn't really learn much about Earth or its history. I would dig up anything I could find about Earth on my own. And then one day, Spencer came home after going to an auction for more artifacts to buy. He showed me his first Earth artifact, and I instantly recognized it from my own research.
Hello, dear. Look what I have for you.
He was holding a box around his arm and pulled out what was inside. This stout little bronze figurine stared at me with small eyes. It had a chubby face, arms, and legs.
I never saw one of these before. Apparently, these are called...
Oh, Dogu!
How did you know that?
Oh, come on, Spencer. Don't you know how much I read? This is a Dogu statue. I always thought they looked so cute.
I honestly don't know how to surprise you. You have such an encyclopedic knowledge of everything that it's impossible for you to not know anything.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
It takes the fun out of things. Sometimes.
Oh, come now, Spence. I still find it fascinating. Que linda. You see, people in Japan...
Japan?
Yes. On Earth?
Oh, Earth. This is from... Earth.
Yes. You know, that planet we all descended from?
Ew, I suddenly understand why it was only 5 quasi. Here, Fenny can have it.
Wait, no! Spencer!
I'm not going to put that thing in my collection. Maybe an antiquarian, but not me. Anyway, make sure you're ready for tonight's party.
No! Bad Martian! Give that to me right now! Give it... Oh, forget it. So that night, Spencer showed off his collection to his inner circle of philosophers, theorists, and other people who sit around too much. I was there just to be his arm candy. And there's nothing really wrong with that. I love to show off a good dress. I remember I had on this marvelous blue and purple galaxy dress. Where did I put that? Anyway, halfway through the conversation, Fenny came running by with the Dogu in his mouth. Fenny, not now. No, I can't play now. Shoo. Spencer's professor from his tutoring days, Dr. Pore, this gangly old custodian, noticed the Dogu statue and said,
Is that what I think it is? A Dogu statue?
I had just managed to pull the Dogu from Fenny's mouth, and she scampered away.
Oh, that earthen thing. It's nothing. Just a trinket from our sorry mother planet. It wasn't even worth 10 quasi.
Did you know about some of the old Earth theories about ancient astronauts?
Ancient astronauts? I finally paid attention, because this was something I had never heard about before.
Oh, no, I haven't.
Yes. See, some Earthlings believed that non-human beings visited their world in primitive times. There are many supposed artifacts about
Okay, so one thing I hate about people is when they talk so slow before getting to the point. I feel so awful saying this. I mean, it's a mean thing to say, isn't it? Yes, it is. I'm ashamed. But it's the truth. Anyway, Dr. Pore basically said that some Earthlings believed that the Dolgu were some aliens that visited Earth a long time ago, way before we could even drive cars. The theory is that Earthlings mistook the spacesuit of the unknown alien to be their true form, and sculpted these figurines after them. Of course, conventional wisdom in history states that these theories were nothing more than wild fantasies. Nobody cared about Earth, and to this day, still don't. But the theory still intrigued me. Imagine me, Livia Stargaze, Space Raider! Spencer, dear, where did you say you got that?
I didn't. I got it at a convention over on Fen. I really wanted to buy the last known art piece by Lonesome Pole, but some bastard had more money than me and won the auction. I stopped by a vendor on the way home knowing I shouldn't come home empty-handed.
You mean that you should buy something for me?
Right, yes.
Well, Earth history is also silly and inconsequential to the rest of the galaxy. I completely understand why it wasn't worth so much. I'll give it back to your pet here.
I'll take it. Thank you very much. Oh, okay. You know I can't ignore that look. So, Dr. Pore, if one were to research this Gargonian spacesuit theory, where would one start?
Well, asking an expert in Gargonian history would be a start. Being that the Dolgu were suspected of being Gargonian. With the Civil War going on, right now in Gargonia, it would be very difficult to visit the historical society there.
Civil War? In Gargonia? Dr. Pore took forever again to get to the point, but basically, I was out of luck. There was a civil war going on in Gargonia. Rebels were fighting the Empire to end the slave trade. I would be hard-pressed to find any Gargonian historian who wasn't hiding in exile or stuck on Gargonia. Do you know any Gargonian historians, dear?
Me?
You do boast about your social connections.
I mean, well, history's such a broad topic. Anyone could really know anything useful. Listen, Dr. Pore, how was the Saturn Spaceway Grand Prix the other week?
Oh yes, fantastic, Yura. Rising, as you could say. That strange duo, Funky Frank and Bob. There's some debate about if they
It was clear that nobody, especially Spencer, was very interested in going all out and discovering this mystery. Well, I was the only one who really thought it was worth calling it a mystery. I picked up Fenny in my arms and strolled around the party, hoping someone would spark an interest in the Dolgu artifact.
Oh my, I am so
No,
sorry.
it was me. I wasn't paying attention.
Excuse me.
As luck would have it, I ran into a Gargonian woman. I never actually met a Gargonian in person before her. I kept glancing at her tiny horns on the side of her head, thinking about Earth's classic take on how demons look. Wide face, muscular frame, reddish skin. She wore this elaborate dress with feathers of some silly-looking bird thing. She wiped the wine off the floor and said,
1,000 apologies. It's so embarrassing to make a mess in front of host.
"Oh, no problem. It's... How did you know I'm the host? I've never seen you before."
Oh! I've seen you around with Spencer. I figured you two might be seeing each other.
Oh, and you know Spencer?
Yes. We've met at the Saturn Spaceway.
Did you now? I wasn't so much suspicious out of jealousy. Oh my stars, no. I'm not the jealous type. I just knew something about her was fake. Gargonians can be read just like humans, despite their scaly face and tough exterior.
What a lovely animal you have there.
He's a Martian. You can tell by the green stalks on his head, see? Aren't they cute? Say hello, Fenny.
Oh my!
Ugh, sorry. He's been grumpy because I don't want him to chew on this toy, which is Not a toy, actually. Say, do you recognize this by any chance?
No?
Darn. I guess you're not a historian, are you?
Oh, no. I am in Galactic economics.
Oh, are you? Funny. Spencer usually hangs out with the thinking types. I'm sorry. I didn't mean... I meant thinking types like the philosophers. You know.
Oh.
Yes, anyway. Well, welcome to Spencer's. I'm sure you've made yourself comfortable.
Yes, I have. Thank you.
She left and didn't interact with anybody. Something about her felt very... sus. I tried to find Spencer, but he wasn't where he was before, or Dr. Pore. Like I said, the mansion was possibly the biggest in the galaxy. Very easy to lose track of someone when you host a party for about 1,000 people. I must have spent half an hour trying to find him. It must have been too loud for him to hear his transmitter go off every time I tried calling him. And then I sighed in the end. Forget it. Spencer probably didn't know a quarter of the people at his own party. I was probably trying to find something and nothing. But then... Fenny! Where are you going? Fenny had jumped and bolted off like a rabid sleemox. I ran after him, pushing and shoving. This was probably the one time I actually wanted him in his cage, safe from all these people who could trample him. He led me out into the gardens inside the biodome that protected the mansion from the vacuum of space. What is it, boy? You need a pee? What's wrong? Look, I know you're a goofball, but you're practically foaming at the mouth.
Hello again.
Oh! You!
You said your dog was Martian, right? Martian breeds are so much more sensitive to high-pitched sounds.
The Gargonian woman had been hiding behind a tree, holding her wine glass. She kept rubbing the rim of the wine glass, which created a ringing sound. Wait, what happened to your accent?
Oh, that? I like to use that when I'm at these pretentious parties. Let's talk about the meaning of the conscious struggle in this art piece. What a load of stardust.
What are you doing to my dog? Why are you doing that? Then she took out a zapper and shot me. I was stunned from the chest down. I watched as she tried removing the dogu from Fenny's mouth.
Come here, you little bastard!
The Gargonian woman had given poor Fenny a shock, but Fenny was a tough one and immediately chased after her.
Get off me, you mangy Martian!
A massive, hulking spaceship hovered above us. It lowered the ramp and led her on board. She still fought with Fenny, who attached himself to her back. I was starting to feel life flow through my muscles again. I had to get Fenny back. I mustered my strength and started running to the spaceship as it was lifting off again. I leapt onto the edge of the ramp and climbed over before it closed shut.
Get this thing off me! Blazing comets, I hate animals! Benda, Yura, help me!
The Gargonian woman kept shouting as she ran into the next room. I hadn't stowed away on a ship in a long time, but that didn't mean I was rusty. I dove for cover and turned on my transmitter. I called Spencer to let him know the mess I got into. Of course, he didn't answer, so I left him a message. Hey, Spence, funny story. Just let you know that, one of your guests stole not only the dogu, but our dog. I'm currently stowed away in her ship, and I'm going to figure out why all this happened. See you when I see you. Air vents are the number one thing to look for when stowing away on a ship. However, if you have hips like mine, well, it can be difficult. I crawled through trying to do my best not to squirm loudly. Bless it. I finally heard voices below me.
Benda! Yura! Help me! Get it off me.
Well, for starters, you should stop panicking so much.
Oh, it's just a little Martian mutt. It's so cute.
But it's biting me!
Oh, it's just a nibble. It just wants that little statue thing in your hands.
This? Never.
It ain't gonna stop unless you give it.
Here. Here it is. You happy now?
Hey, hold on now.
Are you really going to shoot the poor thing?
I'm only going to stun it. I did it once, but it still managed to get up. I need to raise the power level.
Nobody's allowed to stun innocent animals on board our ship. Right, Bee?
That's right, dear. Miss Quela, if you shoot this Martian dog, you will officially breach your contract with us as your pilots for hire.
But it's just a little...
And we will jettison you into space inside a pod in the middle of nowhere.
Fine. I'll be in my quarters. Make sure that mangy mutt doesn't swallow that dogu. Now that I have it, you know where to go. Don't stop for anything.
I crawled further to take a good look at the two pilots of the ship through the vent, and my poor Fenny chewing on the dogu in between them. The human woman with the wild, high-pitched accent was strikingly tall, red-haired and slim. She wore ragged clothes like a drifter. Her name was Yura. Her co-pilot was another female Gargonian, Benda, but she seemed far nicer than Quela.
Bee, you think maybe next time I could choose a client?
Of course. But you know me. When she claimed she was on the quest to end the Gargonian Civil War, I had to jump on it. Think of it. Us taking part in ending the most brutal conflict Gargonia has ever known.
Yeah, well, she seems awfully mean for someone wanting to stop a war.
Her methods seem cruel, yes, but in the face of an evil regime that seeks to uphold enslaving other species, one must do all in one's power to stop it.
I just don't know what all these dogu things have anything to do with it. I was expecting some zapping action, you know? Taking down the bad guys. Pew, pew, pew!
Oh, blast it!
Did you hear something?
Oh, we need to repair that coolant. The vents keep creaking.
Ah!
Ow! Ah!
Blazing comets! Hands up! Who are you? What are you doing here?
Don't shoot! Don't shoot! I'm just here for my dog, Fenny. Ugh.
Oh my. How did you get on board?
I jumped the ramp, held onto it, and climbed in.
During liftoff?
Yeah, obviously.
That's quite a feat for a human.
Psh, I could do that.
Yes, dear. Anyway, I assume you heard the past conversation we had with our client, Quela?
Yeah, who is she?
She hired us to fetch this idol, which I assume belongs to you.
Sort of. My boyfriend bought it off a vendor. It's actually worthless.
Well, apparently, it's the key to some lost, forgotten tomb.
Is it now?
Yes. Quela is trying to find the lost tomb of Zolera. Legend has it, her mother, Wheeler, explored the galaxy thousands of years ago and landed on Earth. There, she met a human male with whom she fell in love with and, well, mated.
You know, the Big Bang.
Yes, dear. I think she understands.
I just like calling it the Big Bang.
Anyway, Wheeler had to leave, but was unexpectedly pregnant. The result was the first human Gargonian hybrid. In reality, the first hybrid of a Gorgonian with any other species. Zolera later mated with another Gorgonian, and her offspring mated with other Gorgonians. And so, therefore, ever since then, we Gorgonians have had human DNA echoing inside of us.
But what does this have to do with ending the Gorgonian Civil War?
The Gorgonians are a very proud species. Too proud. At some point, we started to believe we were superior from all other species in the galaxy. The slave trade started. We started to have this idea that we were pure. Scientists and historians have tried to prove that wasn't the case with their studies, but they have either been silenced or the data was deemed too insignificant. Zolera's DNA was from so long ago that by now it's only a small percentage, and the powers that be excuse it as some sort of fluke. But if we find that tomb, that could change everything. Zolera will no longer be a legend, but a historical fact.
And the Dogu statues? What do they have to do with finding the tomb?
Well, they're part of a set. Kind of like action figures now that I think about it. See?
Yura went over to a chest and pulled out a set of 9 similar Dogu statues neatly lined up in a rack.
I like this little guy. See how buff he is? He's all like, kapow! And this guy over here looks like the bad guy, so he's all like...
Dear, stop playing with the ancient artifacts that hinge on my planet's survival.
Sorry, B.
But what do they actually do, though?
That's only for me to know.
Oh, hello there. You seem eager to shoot things today.
I'm Quela. I've been on this hunt for the Dogu for years. You can't imagine how frustrated I was when some idiot human bought that last Dogu. I had to hunt him down. And luckily, he hosts tons of parties. So with a little social engineering, I found my way in. Now that I have the last Dogu, I won't let a pesky dog owner get in the way.
Whoever said anything about me getting in the way?
What?
Oh, I find this fascinating. I was telling Spencer at the party how interested I was in all this stuff, but he didn't seem to care. Trust me, Spencer's mansion is nice and all, but I was just starting to feel the entropy in there, if you know what I mean.
What are you saying?
I want to join you, obviously.
No hard feelings about your dog, then?
He's actually my boyfriend's dog, but that doesn't mean you can treat him poorly. I love him to pieces. As long as you let him chew on the Dogu until we get to wherever we're going, I won't cause a fuss.
All right, then. But one false move, and I'll jettison you and your dog into space.
You actually can't do that. It's our ship, and part of our contract states that...
Fine! Then we'll ditch them in the middle of nowhere. I should have taken that piloting class.
We're coming up on Tal Roche. Everyone sit down and get ready for landing.
Tal Roche? Ooh, let me see. I barged my way into the cockpit and stared in awe as the blood-red planet with yellowish clouds came into view. Life as a stowaway was pretty cold in space, hopping from one ship to another. It had been ages since I explored a planet I had never seen before.
Hey, strap in before you fall down. This planet's atmosphere is very rough, so hold on tight. Yahoo!
I gripped the armrests of my seat as we entered the atmosphere of Tal Roche. The cabin shook, and I gripped the armrest tighter. I told myself it was going to be okay, but my body was preparing for the worst, bracing for impact. Then, at last, we broke through. We flew over reddish-brown hills and canyons. It reminded me of Mars, but with a slightly more hospitable landscape with some vegetation and patches of water. Yura and Benda landed the ship in what seemed like the middle of nowhere. Yura looked out at the surroundings and said,
You sure we're in the right place?
It may not look like much, but we're standing on hollowed ground. Let's go.
Is it safe for Martians?
Yes, now let's go.
The air was thin and the horizon stretched out for miles. We landed on a clearing near some ruins. There were age-old monuments half buried in the ground and a tall obelisk that stood over everything, tilted. Quela took out her pad and started reading her map. I assumed it was a map. She didn't tell us exactly how we were going to find the tomb. She kept all the details to herself. I stood back and took a good look at Yura and Benda's ship. What's it called?
Huh?
Your ship. What's it called?
It doesn't have a name, actually.
Doesn't everybody name their ship?
Well, we were picky for so long that we kinda gave up on it.
It's made by Prospective Futures, commercial freighter class.
I wanted something with the word luck in its title. Maybe something like Lucky Charm, or Luck's Charm, or Charmin' Luck.
People use the word luck so many times when naming their ship. They think they're being original, but they're not. We're not some uncouth smugglers rolling the dice at everything we do.
You always pick something boring.
What's wrong with Mercenary Star?
It just is. Besides, it's also the name of an actual planet. Everyone would be confused.
We're practically on the same wavelength on everything else. Honestly.
Except what to call our damn ship.
Everyone ready? We're going underground. Beneath us is the old city of Zolera. They named it after Whills' daughter. There's no telling what could happen down there. There could be a cave-in, and we could get stuck. In fact, it's best that one of you stay and guard the ship in case anything does go wrong. We can signal you for help.
Well, Yura, as always, let's decide on a game of...
Nobby, you can take this one.
Are you sure?
This is all about your people and history and stuff. You need to see this, not me. You could show me the pictures later.
Oh, Yura. Mwah.
Just promise me there'll be more where that came from.
Oh, you bet.
Are you two done? Let's go.
Quela started walking toward the obelisk. Benda went on after her, carrying our supplies. She probably could have carried twice as much as any human with her build. I was about to leave with Fenny when Yura put a hand on my shoulder.
Hold on there, little starfighter. Take this with you.
She handed me a zapper.
I got a weird feeling about Quela. Keep an eye on her. This is for just in case anything happens. You hear?
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Go on now. I'll be on Benda's transmitter. I don't know, though, if the reception will work well underground.
I stared at the zapper for a good second. I had never fired one before, but it didn't seem like something too difficult to do. Point and shoot, right? I hoped I didn't need to use it. I caught up with Quela and Benda over by the obelisk. It had markings of an ancient dialect of Gargonian written all over it.
Fascinating. These are words that haven't been spoken for 1,000 years.
What's it say?
It's the entire family history of Wheeler, from her great ancestors and their achievements, all the way down to her daughter Zolera and her resting place. It says that this is the start of a new beginning for the Gorgonian people.
Benda then seemed wistful, most likely thinking about the civil war going on as we stood there.
It didn't seem to last long.
Aha! Here we go.
Quela found a depression on the obelisk. It was shaped like one of the Dogu. Through the process of elimination, she found the right one that fit. It snapped in place with a click, and the ground shook. The ground below us parted as a gate underneath opened. It was difficult figuring out how the ancient city worked originally, since so much of it was buried underneath sand and dirt, ravaged by time.
Watch out!
When the gate finished opening, we stared down at a wide chasm that went underground. Quela turned on a headlamp and led the way without a further word. This was it. My first real adventure! Wait, Fenny!
Why did you have to bring your dog? It's going to get us into trouble.
I hurried over and scooped up Fenny before she wandered alone in the darkness ahead. The ceiling crumbled and looked like it would collapse if you so much as breathed on it. What is it, boy? You smell something? Hey, wouldn't it be funny if Fenny actually found what we were looking for? He'd be like one of those wonder dogs on those shows.
Listen, this isn't going to be some happy-go-lucky, save-the-day expedition, all right? There are some deadly creatures that have made their home here over the years.
Like slaymoxes?
No, worse. Much worse.
Red-toothed sandworms? Skimtars? Purple-bellied sandweavers? I've read a lot on wild creatures. I won't be scared.
Reading is one thing. Experience is something else. I bet you, the moment you see one of those foul creatures, you'll go running back to the ship.
We'll see.
What was that?
I think it came from there. Oh, it's just Fenny. Zap, I've never heard you make a growl like that before. You hungry?
I don't think Fenny is hungry. I think it's that Grundler.
A Grundler, if you don't travel the stars very often, is a type of lizard creature that likes to burrow underground. This isn't a lizard you can have as a pet in your bedroom. No. This thing was the size of a space freighter. It slept nestled in the darkness, taking up the entire tunnel. It was this beige, scaly monstrosity with a bearded chin and narrow eyes. It growled every so often while sleeping, as if being disturbed by a bad dream. I think we should go now.
I think so too.
Fenny, no! Fenny, no! For context, Fenny was about 10 inches, which is about the size of the tallest Chihuahua. The Grundler was maybe 72 feet long and 100 feet tall? Yeah. And Fenny had no reservations about barking right in its face. Fenny, no! Come here. Stop barking at the giant hungry space lizard.
Dog is going to get us killed.
Just give me a sec. I have a treat here. Look, Fenny, come at Nibblers, your favorite. You come here right now.
Enough of this.
Don't you dare. I wrestled with Quela to get the zapper out of her hands. Just go get him.
You'll wake the...
Look what you did.
Oh, no.
Fenny still found the courage to bark at the looming Grundler, which looked down at him like an appetizing meal. I rushed to scoop Fenny in my arms before the Grundler could take a swipe at him. You really got me in trouble this time!
Now's not the time, run!
The Grundler rose to its full height and thrashed about, causing a cave-in. I honestly don't know how Spencer owned this dog. They usually say pets are like the owners, but Fenny was one exception. We ran through the ruins, which crumbled all around us as the Grundler pursued us. It was impossible to see anything in the dust and sand that poured in. Before I knew it, the ground gave way. I screamed as I tumbled into the dark ravine and hit my head, knocking me out. When I came to, Fenny was licking my mouth. I sat up and regretted doing so because everything hurt. What happened? Benda? Quela? Where are you?
Be careful. Sit up gently, dear. You took a bad fall.
What about you?
Gorgonians can handle quite a fall.
But where's Quela? Quela had been checking out the path ahead. Once she heard me wake up, she stormed towards me.
You just had to bring that dog here, didn't you? I told you this would happen. I should have dropped you into space when I had the chance.
You were about to shoot my dog for what, the third time? What is wrong with you? Didn't you ever own a pet?
Everyone calm down, please. That Grundler is still on the move.
Good. Maybe we'll eat up this little kid and we can get rid of her once and for all.
Nobody is getting rid of anybody. Look, we need to get a move on. Now that Livia is awake, let's go.
What about calling Yura?
She hasn't answered yet.
She could be in trouble. What if the Grundler got her?
I doubt it. She can handle it. She once shot a Fendergarger in the eye.
Just then, Benda's communicator beeped.
Blazing comets! B, are you there? The whole ground caved in when this massive Grundler shot out the ground. This thing's trying to tear apart the ship. What in the black holes did you do to wake this thing up?
What was that about her handling it?
It was a baby Fendergarger. Yura, honey, can you hear me?
Yeah, over the sound of the giant Grundler? Yeah.
Are you able to pilot the ship?
Well, sort of.
Define sort of.
The ship fell at a 90-degree angle. It still works, it's just at a very awkward spot right now. You hear me?
The second you are able to, give that Grundler a piece of its mind. We'll be continuing our mission.
All right, B. Good luck.
You too, love.
We trudged onward through the darkness. Quela had already gone ahead, refusing to talk to us. Benda took out a headlamp and gave one to me. We were stuck wandering around this cavernous ravine for a while. I nearly tripped a bunch of times because I was gazing up at the walls of the cavern. Hey, these are some precious stones, you know? Maybe we can take some with us.
Keep moving!
Well, actually, they are common stones like sapphires and rubies and emeralds. But there seem to be large deposits of beryllium here too. That's what they make some spaceships out of. It's this dense metal that can withstand—
Shut up! You and your textbook nonsense is absolutely annoying. You know that? I don't want to hear about purple-bellied whatevers and the geology of this nowhere plant. All your pointless factoids can't get us out of this mess.
I shut up, feeling embarrassed for my big mouth. But when Quela was out of earshot, Benda put a hand on my shoulder and said,
Oh, don't listen to her. There's no shame in knowing things.
We walked on until Quela found the way up by climbing over some rocks. We had to use some of the climbing gear we brought with us. We went right to it and found ourselves back in the ancient ruins of Zolara. We stood still, staring at everything for a good 10 whole minutes. Even Quela had it in her to stop and be fascinated by history. We had climbed up into an old courtyard. Some light still found its way down from above. You could easily tell that it had once been the center of life in the city, with its grand walkways and massive arches. There was a broken fountain in the middle of what looked like baby Gorgonians dancing in a circle. Several broken huts lined up the perimeter of the courtyard.
My. Bless the stars.
We need to find the graveyard. There's a mausoleum dedicated to Zolara, and that's where she still rests. And make sure your dumb dog doesn't do anything stupid again.
With Fenny in my arms, I followed Quela and Benda across the courtyard and beyond the huts. We reached the outskirts of the old city and descended into a barren field that once had fresh grass, but now had nothing but dirt and sand. At last, we reached the graveyard. Small obelisks dotted the field. They're like the one at the entrance.
A typical Gorgonian tombstone summarizes the person's life in 3 stories. How they were born, how they lived, and how they died.
And one obelisk stood out among the rest. At the center of the graveyard was a wider obelisk, almost like a house. It had an intricate double-door entrance.
But for someone like Zolera, they told her entire life story on her tombstone.
Every little thing about her life was inscribed along the walls of the mausoleum, from Zolara's first words to her last. If you wanted to read the whole story, you started reading on the right door and walked all around the structure until you arrived back at where you started, but reading the end on the left door. I became fascinated with it, even though I couldn't read the language. I completely forgot that Quela and Benda were trying to enter the mausoleum.
No, it goes this way.
Stop it. You're going to break them.
What's wrong?
We don't know how the Dogu fit into these.
There were 10 Dogu-shaped holes for our 9 Dogu statues. We went about trying to fit them, but one of them was always out of place. Quela, in a fit of frustration, tried forcing the figurine into place. Benda immediately moved her hand away.
I told you, you're going to break it.
What else am I going to do?
Can I see that? Quela handed me the Dogu. As I suspected, this was the Dogu that Fenny had been chewing on. I felt every inch of it in my hands, and then the space where it was supposed to go. Oh.
What? What is it?
Well?
Okay, before I say anything, know that this was already a problem before you broke into my boyfriend's house.
What in blazing comments are you on about?
The piece is broken. And I think it's because Fenny chewed it off and, well, ate it. Quela stared at me, unblinking eyes, and I wasn't sure if she was going to implode or strangle me. Or both. Before anyone could say anything else, Quela snatched Fenny from my hands and swung him around.
Ah, you damn dog! Cough it up right now! Spit it out! Shit it out! I don't care how it comes out! I will rip you open if I have to!
Livia!
I had shot Quela. Okay, well, I stunned her, but I gave her quite the shock. She fell and hit her head and passed out. Fenny ran off crying, and I had to run after him and pick him up again.
Well, what do we do now?
I fed Fenny the bag of comet nibblers. We wait.
For what?
For it to come out, of course. Benda stared at Fenny and realized what I meant.
Oh, I see. Well then, at the very least we have a moment to rest.
So, we waited. I disarmed Quela for good measure as she was still passed out. And eventually, the piece came out. I don't have to go into detail about that. We had to figure out how to attach it to the Dogu with some resourceful thinking, and then we set the Dogu in place. The doors finally unlocked with a loud clink. Quela had already woken up by then, and she pushed us aside to step into the mausoleum first.
Look!
Benda pointed ahead. In the center of the grandiose tomb was a bright metal coffin that housed the resting place of Zollara. But Benda was pointing to what hung behind the coffin. It was an ancient Gargonian spacesuit, just like the Dogu. Benda and I were so fascinated that we hurried over and carefully touched the spacesuit.
This is it! This is really it! She not only wore this suit, but her mother Wheeler did too. It had been passed down in her family. Huh, she was a bit shorter than I imagined.
The coffin in the center was made of metal. The outside had drawn 10 Gargonian shapes. I realized that we couldn't open the coffin unless we once again placed the Dogu in their right spots. And then I realized another fascinating thing. It just hit me. The Dogu! They're modeled after Zolara's offspring! She had 10 children!
Bless the stars! That image there depicts Zolara giving birth. The words read, "Here lies the resting place of a new beginning for the Gorgonians. May the descendants be the ones who open this tomb." Oh dear. That almost makes me not want to open it now. I feel bad now.
What? Feel bad? You're Gargonian. For all you know, you may very well be her long-lost, distant, twice-removed cousin. Or something like that.
I don't know.
This is your moment. You said you wanted to help end the war, right?
We'll do it together then, right, Quela? Quela? Quela?
Where did she go? In our giddiness, we hadn't been paying attention to Quela. She oddly enough hadn't said a word since we entered the mausoleum. You would think she would be as fascinated and excited as Benda.
Did she leave?
We hurried to the entrance and pushed to open the doors when we realized we couldn't. Ugh, it's not budging! Do we need the dogu to leave?
I don't see any of those slots anywhere.
What's that?
She barred the door.
What? Why? Quela? Quela, what's going on?
I'm ending the war once and for all.
What? Did you hear what she said?
No. The walls are too thick.
Sorry, what was that?
I'm here to destroy this pathetic legend.
You're here to dish out patty cakes? What?
Yes?
I said I was going to end the war, and this is it. I'm here to destroy this pathetic excuse for a Gargonian legend once and for all. Without proof of Zolara's existence, your stupid rebellion is at an end.
Quela, what are you talking about?
Quela was weak. She tainted Gargonian blood with foul humans. Zolara is nothing but an abomination. I bet you are their descendant, being that you're so hell-bent on making us mingle with the filth of the galaxy.
How dare you! You used us!
All for the good of our race.
What's locking us in here going to do?
Haven't you noticed? While you were so busy fawning over that stupid spacesuit, I planted a grade A quantum explosive.
I turned around and searched the tomb for the bomb. Sure enough, in the corner by the coffin was a black oblong-shaped, highly compact explosive that could easily blow a crater.
Ta-ta!
What do we do?
Call Yura right now. As Benda did so, I tried harder to open the doors. I managed to pry it open just a centimeter and saw the sizable boulder that Quela had rolled in the way. I stopped and picked up the bomb. Maybe we could open the doors just enough to throw it out? Was there a button on this thing? Some kind of mechanism to exploit and make it stop? It didn't even have a timer. It didn't beep or give off any flashing lights. We had no indication of when we were going to blow up. Explosives, as much as I hate admitting, weren't my strong suit. There had to be something we could use. I looked over at Fenny standing on top of the coffin, and then it hit me. Benda! Over here!
What is it?
Remember the Torrillium I pointed out earlier in the cavern? This coffin is made of Torrillium.
And?
It can withstand the explosion! Without saying any further, Benda dropped the call with Yura and we placed the dogu on the slots to open the coffin. There lay Zolara, the first human Gargonian hybrid. She was well preserved, being that non-human races typically had access to strong, almost magical preservatives for corpses. Zolara had a smaller frame than your average Gargonian. She seemed to have died peacefully, without regrets. You know what we have to do. We don't have a lot of time.
Picture! I can take a picture!
Benda did so, and then paused for a moment of silence for the great Gargonian legend. Fenny, no!
Oh my stars!
Fenny leapt into the coffin and started sniffing and chewing at the corpse. He bit off a finger and ate it.
Oh
Fenny!
no!
Ugh! I picked him up and Benda started disposing of the corpse from the coffin over to the side. She went in first. Then I laid on top of her with Fenny in my arms and we just barely fit. When we closed the coffin, Fenny panicked and whined.
I can't believe we just did that. We just defiled the greatest legend of Gorgonia. I can't do this. I have to get out of here.
No, wait! It could blow up any... Boom. The coffin heated up instantly. The metal creaked as dents formed. I thought the idea wasn't going to work and we were going to die. I closed my eyes and held Fenny tight. But we were still alive, and silence reigned. I reached out to open the coffin, but it nearly singed my hand. I kicked it open instead. The mausoleum had been destroyed, and a small crater now surrounded us. Only a couple of walls still stood. The rest had been blown to bits. A couple small fires raged on the side. Smoke lingered. Okay, I think we're good to go. Let's go. Benda stopped to take a look at everything.
Is there nothing we can take with us? Is she really gone?
Benda, I'm so sorry. I really am.
It's not your fault. It probably wouldn't have worked anyway. How can you convince thousands of people their way of thinking is wrong? It's not just Quela that bothers me, but the fact that so many like her are on Gorgania right now, fighting for what they firmly think is right.
I didn't really have an answer for her. I felt bad watching her look at the rubble, trying to think if there's anything she could do.
Yura, do you copy?
Right here, B.
We've got some bad news. Quela double-crossed us.
Oh, blast it. I knew she was up to something. I never liked her.
Right. Well, no use in beating ourselves up over it. What's your status? Are you still stuck?
Yep.
Send me your coordinates and we'll head over your way.
What happened to Quela then?
She ran off. I don't know where she is.
Hopefully that grundler will get her.
I feel the same way. Over and out. What's that?
Uh-oh. The bomb had disturbed the cavern. From the ground up, the disturbance reverberated throughout the entire cavern. I have a bad feeling about this.
Run! Yura! Yura! Do you copy?
Right here, B.
What's your status?
Still stuck here. Felt a little tremor, though. Was that you again?
Listen, the cavern is collapsing. You need to hold on tight.
Blazing comets, Grundler running loose, Quela betraying us, and now a cave-in? You still know how to show me a good time.
We ran as fast as we could, heading towards Yura's coordinates. Every second that passed, more and more of the cavern collapsed. Sand started pouring in from above. We stopped running when we reached a ravine. Across from the empty chasm was the continuation of what would have been the path.
What do we do? Jump?
I don't know about Gorgonians, but I can't make that jump. The Grundler reared its head from the chasm, climbing over and snarling at us. Our zappers were like throwing pebbles at it. We heard Yura over the communicator. Yura swept through a narrow crevice in the wall, blasting away at the Grundler. It tried swiping at the ship, but it fell into the chasm. She took a U-turn and landed in front of us, where we promptly jumped on board. Yura wasted no time in getting us out of there. We weren't even seated yet, and she swerved the ship around and took us out of there before the cavern could collapse. After a long-needed shower, I entered the cockpit.
Whew. That was quite the narrow escape. Am I right?
Yes.
Wasn't a total loss. You did take that picture. We still have those cool little action figures. And I may have swiped some Torillium from the walls before I left. That's worth what? 50 quasi? 60?
Yura was trying really hard to make Benda feel better about the whole thing, but Benda just sat despondently and hummed in response.
Hey, Livia, why don't you fetch us some cocktails from the bar? You know how to make a cocktail now, don't you?
Oh yes, of course. What would you like?
I don't know. Surprise us.
The idea of making a cocktail brought me back to Spencer's house. I realized how much I missed home comforts, after having narrowly escaped from death about 3 times in a row. I couldn't wait to get back home and lie in my bed and take up a new book to read. Quela! I dove for cover behind the bar. Quela had somehow managed to sneak on board the ship. She fired madly in my direction, zapper bolts singing through the air. I pretended to play dead and laid low, very still. She stopped firing and approached the bar. When she peered over, I took one of the bottles and swung it across her face. Ah! I wrestled with her to get the zapper out of her hands. The airlock was a few feet away. Huh! Fenny, get help! Just then, the airlock opened. I shoved Quela inside and closed it. Quela panicked, looking around and trying to find a way to open it again.
Get me out of here!
I froze. I never killed anyone before. I certainly didn't imagine thinking I would kill someone by jettisoning them off into space. But then, the airlock suddenly opened. Quela clung to the door handle and her eyes widened as the vacuum of space tried to suck her out. She mustered all her strength to look over the little window, and we both realized that Fenny had been the one to push the button.
I hate your dog!
And with that, space sucked her out. Believe it or not, Spencer's party was still going on by the time I got back. Yura and Benda dropped me off, and we said goodbye.
Well, nice going, little starfighter.
Thank you for your help.
Are you sure you don't want to come inside for a quick drink?
I mean, I'm always up for a drink, but,
Sorry, dear. I'm about as tired as a Dragonian sloth on a hot afternoon. We really must be going.
Benda was clearly still bothered by the failure of our mission. And who could blame her, really? I felt really bad, but still didn't know what to say. And maybe that was better instead of saying something stupid.
Hey, so if you need a couple ragtag mercenaries to help you with something, whether it be looking for lost artifacts or hunting down some bad guys, give us a call, alright?
She handed me their card with their number. Benda and Yura, professional mercenaries. Then, they went back into their ship and lifted off. I went inside carrying Fenny and walked past dozens of people passed out on the floor, the pool table, the swimming pool, and even the library.
Oh, hey, honey. Where have you been? I was looking all over for you. Missed my friend Lana. She gave us this wonderful art piece about the struggle of the conscious experience. This is light years ahead of anything Lonesome Pole ever made. I can't believe I thought he was good at deconstruction, you know?
I immediately tuned out, and the excitement and pleasure of being back was somehow ruined. Oh, sorry. I think Fenny needs to go outside. You need to go out, boy? Come on, let's go. Fenny did his business on the turf, and I prepared myself to pick up after him, when I noticed something strange that he pooped out. Is that? Wait a minute. Oh my stars! Apparently, Martian dogs don't digest Gargonian flesh very well. Remember the finger Fenny chewed off from the corpse of Zalara? Well, the DNA in that finger was proof that the human gene pool mingled with Gargonian blood. Benda was ecstatic when she came to pick it up and zipped away with Yura. As I watched them leave, I started to realize just how many other treasures were out there waiting to be discovered that could even change history. I considered that whole expedition my first real adventure, and it had me wanting more. Anyway, it's time I log off before I suck up all the oxygen on the ship. See you when I see you.